At the peak of the space age, humanity was pushing the boundaries of technology, taking one more step in advanced genetic engineering research. However, this step sparked a great debate regarding humanity and ethical values. In a research center, a wounded soldier named Jack Thompson was deceived with the promise of treatment, only to be subjected to inhumane experiments. They transformed him into a half-lion, half-human monster. They had successfully created a death machine with ferocious strength and extraordinary reflexes, but they failed to account for one thing: Jack's will and humanity. When Jack was brought to the hospital, severely injured, he was met with promises of help. As he slowly opened his eyes, he saw bright white lights and sterile walls surrounding him. Initially, he felt safe, but soon the truth began to unfold. The first experiments began with genetic modifications injected into his body. These injections caused burning pain in every cell. As his genetic code was rewritten with lion DNA, Jack's body trembled, his muscles spasmed in agony. Each cell resisted the change, but the scientists persisted. Each experiment transformed Jack's body a little more, pulling him further away from his humanity. The changes in his body quickly became noticeable. His arms and legs swelled with muscle mass, and fur began to cover his skin. When the pain became unbearable, the scientists would sedate him, only to resume their ruthless experiments. Jack's screams echoed through the cold walls of the laboratory, but no one came to help. Later, brain modifications began. Jack's skull was opened, and electrodes were implanted in his nerves. As his brain waves and thought processes were examined, painful and fearful memories were relived over and over. Electrical impulses sent to his nervous system aimed to control his brain. But Jack's will was strong. No matter how hard the scientists tried, they couldn't fully seize control of his mind. During this process, they attempted to completely eradicate Jack's emotional state. They showed him the faces of his loved ones, teaching him to stay away from these images. The deepest bonds of humanity were being severed. Yet, Jack knew that somewhere inside, he was still human, and he clung to this glimmer of hope. Eventually, Jack's appearance had completely changed. He was now a half-human, half-lion being. His strength and reflexes were extraordinary, but within this new body, there was still a suffering human soul. As the experiments continued, Jack grew more desperate each day. Unable to fully control his brain, the scientists began to see him as a threat. One day, unexpectedly, he found an opportunity. Due to the scientists' negligence, a security breach occurred. Jack seized this chance and killed his assigned caretaker, managing to escape the center. During his escape, he left behind the cold and painful environment of the laboratory with each step he took. After escaping from the research center, Jack found himself in a completely unfamiliar and hostile world. The wounds he sustained during his escape were still fresh on his body. As traces of his old life faded away, he had to face the challenges of a new life. Initially, finding food was the biggest challenge. Jack was no longer fully human nor entirely animal. He had to learn to hunt in the wild. In his first days, he had to eat the fruits and plants he found in the forest to survive. However, these kinds of foods did not provide enough energy for his new structure. As days passed, his hunting instincts began to develop. He was fast and strong like a lion, but he had to learn how to hunt. His first prey was a deer he saw in the forest. As he chased it, he struggled with the human side of his heart. When he caught the deer, he knew he had to kill it, but the guilt inside him caused him pain. However, he had to do this to survive. With each hunt, he became stronger both physically and emotionally, but his humanity eroded a little more. Jack had to find shelter at night to protect himself from wild animals and the weather. At first, he searched for caves and abandoned structures. One night, in the midst of a heavy storm, he found a large cave. The inside of the cave was cold and damp, but it protected him from the dangers of the outside world. He created a barricade with large stones at the entrance to secure himself. The first nights he spent in the cave made him experience the deepest pains of loneliness and isolation. As he lay on the cold stones, his body shivered and his wounds worsened. However, with each new day, he tried to make the cave more livable. He made a bed out of collected branches and created a small area to store food. This shelter helped to alleviate both his physical and emotional pain, but it also became a new symbol of his loneliness. Jack's transformation constantly caused him pain. His bones and muscles were perpetually reshaping into a form that was a mix of human and lion. There were nights when he couldn't sleep because of the pain. Since his body carried both human and animal traits, it was in a constant state of adjustment. Although his wounds seemed to heal, a new pain emerged every day. Every movement made his joints ache and muscles tighten. These pains tested his will while sharpening his survival instincts. Jack's emotional pains were deeper and more burning than his physical pains. The fear of losing his humanity haunted him every moment. After his escape, he often thought about his family and his old life. He tried to remember their faces, but over time these memories faded. He felt like a monster, and this feeling consumed him from within. Having to avoid people deepened his loneliness even more. Every day, he fought a battle between the human and animal sides within him. His human side longed for love and connection, while his animal side was filled with instincts for survival and hunting. This internal conflict tore him apart emotionally. Sometimes, as he sat deep in the cave, he struggled with tears. Thinking about the cruelty and betrayals humans had inflicted upon him dragged him into deep sorrow. Jack changed and transformed a little more every day. However, he tried not to lose the glimmer of hope inside him. He continued to fight for his life, hoping that he could once again feel human and reunite with his loved ones. One day, Jack went hunting in the forest to fill his stomach. That morning, it was quiet and calm. As he moved through the trees, he listened and sniffed his surroundings carefully. While tracking his prey, he suddenly heard human voices coming from the depths of the forest. These voices quickened Jack's heart. For the first time since his escape, he was about to encounter humans. Jack cautiously moved in the direction of the sound. Hidden among the dense vegetation, he saw a group of hunters setting up camp. 3 men were sitting around a fire, cleaning the animals they had hunted. As Jack watched them, his animal instincts kicked in, but his human side tried to remain careful and cautious. Jack tried to silently retreat without drawing attention. However, the snap of a dry branch caught the hunter's attention. One of them suddenly lifted his head, noticed Jack, and alerted the others. "There's something over there," he shouted. The hunters grabbed their weapons and headed toward Jack. Jack thought of fleeing, but one of the hunters got too close. His animal instinct took over, and he lunged at the hunter. Despite trying to retreat from the unexpected attack, the hunter couldn't escape Jack's claws. The other 2 hunters immediately rushed to help their friend, and a violent struggle ensued. As Jack fought all 3 hunters simultaneously, he used his wild strength. While defending himself with claws and teeth, the hunters retaliated with knives and spears. The forest's silence was shattered by the sounds of the struggle. Tree branches snapped, and the leaves on the ground rustled. When Jack delivered a powerful claw strike to one of the hunters, the man was injured and collapsed. However, the other 2 hunters attacked Jack even more fiercely. Jack took a deep knife wound to his arm and growled in pain. The blood flowing from his wound weakened him. Yet, his will and survival instinct kept him standing. With one last effort, Jack lunged at the injured hunter and incapacitated him. Seeing their friend fall, the other hunters panicked. One of them leaped at Jack, grappling with him. Meanwhile, the other hunter drove a spear into Jack's back. Jack howled in pain but did not give up. Using the last of his strength, he brought the hunter to the ground. When the fight was over, Jack was severely wounded but still alive. One of the hunters was critically injured, and the other had managed to escape. Jack, breathing heavily, trembled with the pain of his wounds. He mustered one last burst of strength and ran into the depths of the forest. This confrontation was Jack's first contact with humans, reminding him once again how difficult and dangerous it was to avoid them. He was wounded both physically and emotionally. The brutality of humans and his struggle with his animal side were dragging him into a deep darkness. Jack, severely wounded, fled deeper into the forest. His heart raced, and his body trembled in pain. The brutal struggle with the hunters had left deep wounds and bruises on his body. However, this clash reminded him of his will to survive and his inner warrior spirit. Jack continued on without stopping until he found a safe place. When he reached a riverbank, he stopped to clean his wounds. The cold water provided temporary relief to his wounds, but did little to ease his inner pain. He continued his journey to find shelter. Amidst the dense vegetation, he found a small cave under the roots of a large tree. This cave would serve as a temporary refuge. While resting in the cave, Jack's thoughts oscillated between hope and fear for the future. This first encounter with humans had shown him that he would have to face them again someday. However, he needed to learn to balance his humanity and his wild side. This struggle would not only strengthen him physically but also emotionally. One day, he hoped to find a way to blend in with humans and lead a normal life instead of running from them. Maybe he could meet someone like Anna again and be reminded of what it meant to be human. But until then, he had to continue fighting to survive and protect himself. Jack closed his eyes and tried to rest. His mind wandered between memories of the past and possibilities for the future. This story would not end here. It would be a new beginning for him. Jack would rise again and carve out his own destiny. This being, trapped between humanity and animality, would survive and perhaps one day become fully human. If you enjoyed our story and want the second part to come, don't forget to like and leave a comment.